Hello, and welcome to a cool dude bro wearing a gold chain episode of We Only Look Thin. I am your cool dude bro host wearing a gold chain, Donald Weigel, and I have lost about 100 pounds. I've kept it off for about 7 years. And with me, as always, is
Catherine Weigel, Tiny Habits certified coach, Thrive Global certified coach, married to macho man Donald Weigel.
Oh yeah.
I already said what the habit things. I've also lost over 100 pounds and kept it off for over 7 years.
Yeah.
And I think Donald is my accountability buddy.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You are my accountability buddies.
You're my accountability buddy as well.
For all the time that we spend on maybe 8 to 10 minutes per episode on kind of like the on-ramp of the yucks and fun.
Yeah.
I feel like by combining words, we're actually saving time.
Oh yeah,
over 376 episodes.
Yeah, this is 376.
Like, we're saving so much time by saying, like, accountability buddy instead of accountability buddy. Like, who has time for that? I don't have time for that.
No, I don't know that anyone has time for that, but we have just saved the listeners so much time by combining those two words.
Right.
And you're my buddy. You hold me accountable.
Well, thanks.
You're my accountability buddy.
You are. And one other thing that helps me save time, which is actually like a real thing. I'm not even joking right now.
Oh, I was expecting a joke.
No, I'm serious, man. I don't know where you get your ideas from. Is listening to audiobooks.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
my goodness, yes.
I had purchased the book Tiny Habits
a
long time ago. I had heard the author, BJ Fogg, on another podcast and suggested the book. And I was like, I'm interested in that. And then I bought the book and the font was weird.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to read this book. The font is weird.
Was that BJ Fogg's fault?
No, it was the editor's fault. It wasn't his fault. But it was a stumbling block to me reading the book in that I did not want to read it. But I then listened to the audiobook, and guess what? It saved me a lot of time. So a book that I had on my shelf for 6 months, suddenly it was in my ears for $3.99. And I got through it really quickly and was totally inspired, like within 2 weeks, to become a Tiny Habits certified coach. It went from nothing to like suddenly I was all in.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear, we did pay for the book on Audible.
Yeah.
It was not actually free $3.99.
Oops, okay,
we bought it. But I also listened to the audiobook of it, and it is read by Mr. BJ Fogg. And a lot of people don't know this, but he goes by BJ because his real name is Bartles and James Fogg.
Oh my gosh, dork. So. I am not going to suggest this to my Tiny Habits certified coach friends because it is not Bartles and James.
Oh, it's not Bartles and James.
No, it is not.
That's what I read. That's what I read on Wikipedia.
1980s.
Yeah.
Holy smoke a doodles. You can't believe anything on the internet, Donald.
Yeah, I guess not.
Anyway, the point being that I had every intention of reading Tiny Habits. I had the desire. I had the book. It was like ready to go. But then like visually, it just kind of wasn't my jam. Like it was just kind of hard to read. I don't really have time to read in my schedule. And switching the technology to ear listening instead of eyeball listening suddenly made it easy to do the habit that I wanted to do.
You know, and I didn't know we were going to actually talk about this, but, you know, you are listening to a podcast right now if you were hearing the sound of my voice. Yes. So you're probably already open to this, but listening to audiobooks, and I started doing this years ago now, but really genuinely changed my life because like I bought a little speaker, like waterproof speaker in the shower. So, and obviously I've got like earbuds and stuff. So I can listen in the morning when I'm getting ready. I can listen when I'm driving to work, and I feel like I've gotten all of this reading time back in my life that I didn't have because you can't read like on paper in a shower.
Right.
or even on your tablet in the shower.
But I've been stuck in traffic, like literally with someone reading a newspaper, like on the 405, someone, you know, shaving or putting on lipstick or, you know, reading a newspaper. Which,
none of those things are safe.
Not safe, but all of this ties together. See, it's all coming together now.
Oh, we're going to actually bring it together. Okay, good.
It turns out, because I have the audiobook, and then again, we have the print book of Tiny Habits.
Yeah, we've given BJ Fogg that money twice.
We have. But it has really tied into, and it talks about it in the book, Tiny Habits by BJ Fogg, about making it easier to do the habits that you already want to do.
Yes.
And for me, this was a giant kind of reframe, aha moment of taking personal responsibility for looking at the habits that you want to do and then actually figuring out how to work them into your lives. Maybe in looking at things in new ways, new technologies, reframing. And BJ Fogg sort of talks about, as I'm stepping back a little bit, that you actually need 3 things in order for a behavior to take place.
Yeah.
So in order for a behavior to happen, again, this is math with numbers and stuff like that, but he actually calls it a B equals MAP, which, okay, don't cry. It's fine. So what that actually is motivation.
If you were going to cry, don't do that, because it's fine.
You need 3 things in order for a behavior to happen. You need the motivation or desire. You need the ability to be able to do something. And then you need the prompt. So again, the motivation is the desire. Ability means the capability, and anyway, still a word, ability is fine. And then the prompt, or the reminder to do something. And when you're trying to troubleshoot a habit, paying attention to those 3 elements helps you understand how to actually work a habit into your actual routine. So again, it might be obvious to someone that, running a marathon is a big ask. If someone just said, okay, run a marathon today, you might see a training montage on television. You might see a story of someone who had never run in their life, and then they were super motivated and got it done like really easily. So you're pumped up, you're ready to do it, but then you realize you don't have any strength. You don't have shoes. You don't have any,
I haven't run in a very long time, but I think I could do it. I think I could run a marathon.
Okay, so you've got the motivation,
yeah,
and you've got the prompt,
yeah,
but that ability part, like the actual training,
probably what you're saying is I can't.
Right, but a lot of us stumble when we have the motivation, and we have the reminder or the prompt to do it, but then we stumble because that ability part is missing. And so we just go well, I guess it wasn't meant for me. I'm not a runner. And that identity that we carry of, I'm not a reader, I'm not a runner, I'm not capable of doing it, that just oversimplifies the problem. And part of sort of behavior design and Tiny Habits is really taking responsibility for that ability part and sort of taking it apart into its elements and figuring out what part of that ability is challenging to you and how can you make that easier for yourself. And so BJ Fogg came up with something called the ability chain. Sort of the elements that come together, kind of like I was going to say the Powerpuff Girls, but there aren't enough. Power Rangers, was that a thing?
Yeah, Power Rangers.
It's kind of like, okay, imagine the Power Rangers.
I think there was 5 of them. I was sort of too old. I missed the Power Rangers thing. It was just after my time.
Yeah, for me, it's Voltron. For maybe people younger than us, it is the Power Rangers. But basically, there are 5 Power Rangers of the ability chain. So, Donald, why don't you tell us what those 5 elements of ability might be?
Well, they might be. I'm so glad that you asked me to do this. They might be time, money, physical effort, mental effort, and routine. And if you look at each link in that chain, and if any one of them or more than one of them is too weak, if it's preventing you from actually engaging in the habit, then that chain is going to break and you're not actually going to be able to implement that habit. And so what you want to do is take the word ability and put a cape on it and make it capability.
Oh boy, that was a nice job.
Thank you.
I actually like that visual. That's good.
Thank you.
But I think that a lot of times on social media, we see, like Donald said, bro dudes or dude bros or whatever, or, those like, well, just do it. If you just wanted it enough, you would figure it out.
Yeah. And, for years and years, it's like I listened to that, nothing against Nike, but, that Nike, like, just do it. And I thought to myself, well, what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like, why can't I just do it? Like, I should be able to just do it. Why is this so hard? Like, why can't I just, eat healthy all the time? Why can't I just do this exercise all the time? Why can't I like put these steps in place that are going to get me to the weight that I want? And, it's a gross oversimplification, and you see a lot of these, we keep talking about dude bros, but there's a lot of these dude bros online, and I try to avoid them on Instagram, etc., who just don't understand, like people who have never had a weight problem. We did an episode in the very early days of this show about a personal trainer who wrote in, I think we called it fear of a Roger planet or something like that.
We were speaking at a health and fitness event, and one of the trainers who was going to be at the event was like, you basically just got to do it. And if you can't pick up a refrigerator and like run down the street with it, or like to get medicine for your friend under a refrigerator.
His point was like, why bother, being in like losing weight by walking or by walking up and down stairs or something. If you can't lift a refrigerator off when it's fallen upon your child, or you can't run a mile to get medicine in an emergency, then there's no point in even trying to get fit. And it's sort of, we are very much against that sort of attitude. And a lot of it comes from people who have never had a weight problem, have never had to deal with this, and they don't understand how difficult it is for the rest of us and all of the obstacles and stumbling blocks that we have to, remove and break down in order to achieve our weight loss and fitness goals.
Well, and we might also just have a friend or a partner or, a family member who is naturally athletic or naturally organized or naturally thin or always seems to have energy. And there is just sort of a bias in the world. If something is easy for us, it is hard to imagine that it would be challenging for anyone else.
Very true.
And that just really sort of is reductive and is again sort of that Nike, well, like it's easy for me, so just do it for you. And if there is friction, then you just feel like, well, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I must just not want it enough. And again, that just oversimplifies things. So this sort of ability chain that BJ Fogg talks about is an ability to self-coach yourself through a habit that you're trying to put in place and really discover what is making it challenging. And then it sort of gives you the opportunity to look at it with a different lens and sort of figure out what is getting in your way. So again, not all of these elements have to be in place, but it's pretty likely that either time, money, physical effort, mental effort, or routine is, or are the things that are getting in the way of establishing a habit. It's not, 21 days of doing something and you'll do it forever. It does not take 21 days to build a habit. It takes like integrating it into your actual life in a realistic and sustainable way. So we're going to sort of break apart that ability chain and show you, a dear listener, how to manage and sort of coach yourself through a habit that you're finding challenging right now. So think, but as we go forward, what is something right now that you are finding challenging? I already gave the example, and again, I kind of stumbled upon it, so it wasn't really the answer. I didn't use this method, but it was like I had that book on my shelf for 6 months. I would open it, look at it, and close it. And again, I had the desire, I had the motivation, I had the prompt, it was sitting right there, but that ability part just wasn't there. And I kept kind of running into a brick wall with it. It wasn't until I realized that the audiobook was the solution that suddenly it wasn't a problem anymore. So we are going to, again, go through each of these and help you untangle that habit that you are trying to establish.
Yeah, and I just want everyone to know that if you have the song Break These Chains of Love by Erasure stuck in your head now because we're talking about all of this, it is natural and normal, and I too have had that song stuck in my head.
Chain of Fools.
Oh yeah, that's also a thing.
I think there are other foolish chain songs, but
Yes.
But these aren't chains of fools. These are chains of
foolish chain songs.
They are Powerpuff. They are what is it? No, it wasn't Powerpuff.
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers. So much power. So there's power in arranging your chain of ability. I don't know. BJ Fogg is not a sponsor of this television. Oh, we're not even on a television show. This is a podcast. Okay. Look, my family's
definitely not a sponsor of this television show.
He's not a sponsor of this television show. Also, my family still thinks I have a blog. So really,
right? Yes, go check out our blog. Please.
Okay. So as you are entering any situation where you are feeling friction on a habit that you are trying to put in place, there are 2 discovery questions to ask. Just 2. 2 questions?
Yeah.
That's not asking very much.
It's not really asking a lot if you think about it.
No, and it's basically 2 sides of the same coin. So when you notice, and I know I already asked you to consider a habit that you're finding challenging right now, but for me, that the situation with not reading the book. So the first question is, what is making this habit hard to do? And the second is, what would make it easier to do? It's that simple. And just because it's simple doesn't mean that there isn't a lot to unpack from that. But really think about it. Not just like, well, I just can't. Okay, get specific. Why? So for me, again, what is making this hard to do? Well, the font is hard to read. The graphics are kind of weird. I don't really have a time in my day when I read. I'm not sitting a lot, so it's hard.
I don't have time. I can't carve out 30, 40 minutes an hour to just sit in one place and read a book generally on most days. So how could I do this? Right.
And a lot of times we get myopic or single focused when that other question, what would make it easier to do? A lot of times we just say, I don't know. Or I don't know. Well, I just don't have time to read. Well, until I retire from my job, in 30 years, then I'll be able to read this book. And we shut down at that initial, I just can't. This isn't the right time. So this ability chain that we're going to talk about is about sort of figuring out ways to make something easier for yourself so that you can meet yourself where you are and do the thing that you want to do now. Maybe today is not marathon day.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a 5-minute walk day. And again, that reframing of it didn't occur to me, I'll just keep looking at the first page of this book over and over and over again until it sticks. Going to an audiobook? I finished it in 4 days and I was excited about it.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was oh, well, an audiobook isn't a real book. Blah, blah, blah. That isn't an issue. I wanted the content. I had the motivation. I had the prompt, and then I had the ability, and then the behavior happened. So again, we are going to use these discovery questions to unpack the ability chain. And again, Donald, why don't you remind us and sort of what are those 5 abilities once again?
So once again, you look at these 5 categories, each link in the chain, and the first one is time. Do you have enough time to do the behavior? Second one is money. Do you have enough money to do the behavior? Third one is routine or schedule. Does this behavior fit into your current schedule? Does it take too much physical effort? Are you physically capable of doing the behavior? And the last one is mental effort. Does the behavior require a lot of creativity or mental effort? And then some of that, I don't want to jump ahead too far, some of all of these things is getting over the idea that there's only one
exactly
perfect thing to do. There are people out there who will say, well, listening to an audiobook isn't really reading. Well, what is better is doing nothing, not reading at all, or listening to the audiobook. And you know what? A lot of the audiobooks I listen to, I think, are far more entertaining when you get a good narrator. But that's just me defending audiobooks at this point.
Well, but I think it's important to not be, again, just like black or white on how something is done. And when we let go of that rigidity and the right way to do something, we open ourselves up to the possibility of adaptability and pivoting and looking at things in different ways. And sometimes we need to get out of our own ways, especially when like we want to do something, but also kind of we're like, if I say I can't do it, then I don't have to solve my problem.
Right.
And then I'm just the person that never gets it done. So this is an opportunity to be introspective, but also ask other people how they get things done. Google it, YouTube it, like whatever people do these days. There are so many solutions out there. And once we unpack all of the solutions, not that we have to move ahead, but it gives us that freedom to look at things differently. So again, the discovery questions are, what is making it difficult and what would make it easier? So the first is, again, time. How could I, if time is the issue, and not everything will be, it's not all 6 problems or 5 problems that you have, but it might be a combination of them. What kind of time constraint do I have? Would it make it easier if I spent less time doing it? If I reduce the frequency from thinking I had to do something every day and reducing that to maybe twice a week? What if I reduced the complexity? If it was, a 7-step process on something like washing windows? No, it was 6. It was a 6-step from last week. 6 steps or 5 steps.
Last episode we talked about streaks, and Catherine had looked up like how to clean your windows without streaks, and there was a 6-step process, and that's just too many steps.
It's seriously my will to live dissolved. But could you make it less complex to make it less time intensive, like buying instant cookie dough instead of making something from scratch?
Right.
If you've got an event. Or is the timing a priority issue? Well, yeah, I would love to scroll on the internet for 6 hours, but I think I could donate 30 minutes of my life to reading.
Instead.
That's not a time problem. It's a compromise issue. So,
and just one example to throw out there, we used to, before bed, we would stay up, watching reruns of Seinfeld or things like that, like really late.
Oh my gosh.
And then the next morning we would be like, why are we so tired? Like, why can't I exercise? And, we ended up having to make it a priority to go to bed at a certain time, lights off at a certain time, and it's early. And, so that we were rested enough and so we could get up early enough to add the exercise into our day.
I shudder to think of the number of times my boss was like, oh, you're late. And I'm like, well, I just can't. There's nothing to do. I can't.
There's no solution.
I can't just even, not that I didn't stay at work late and work through lunch or whatever, but I was like, there's no solution to this problem. And
I know she's very controversial. I know a lot of people don't like her, but there was a sketch.
I thought you were talking about my boss.
Well, that's true too. There was a sketch on Amy Schumer's sketch show where people kept going to a doctor and they were like, I cannot get a good night's sleep. What can I do? And the doctor was like, well, just, don't scroll on your phone. Like, don't look at your phone for an hour before bed. And they're like, please, doctor, give me a solution.
Anything.
Is there a surgery I can do? Is there a drug I can take? No, just don't scroll on your phone. No, doctor, please, I'm begging you, give me a solution. And so it's sort of that kind of thing.
It's like, but what else?
Yeah, but what else? Isn't there something else I can do?
Ambien or whatever.
Could you please do brain surgery on me instead? Exactly.
Okay, so after time, then there is the money issue. How could I reduce the cost, split the cost, or reframe the cost? So again, Could I do something less frequently instead of getting my my Starbucks drink every single day? Could I do it just on Fridays and Saturdays? Are there free alternatives? For example, instead of paying for a group fitness class, doing online YouTube videos? Could I switch up my priorities and compromise and just say, hey, you know, I know I'm spending a lot on my cable bill, but really am going to make this financial investment in buying better quality running shoes? Or could you reduce the cost, find sales, buy things less frequently? There's so many different ways to look at the money side of things, not just, and also kind of reframe things mentally about spending money on yourself is also a big issue. We'll talk more. I don't know if we mentioned this or not, but we're actually going to do a second part to this episode. I guess this one is called part 1, so that anticipates part 2.
This is sort of the general overview, and then next week we'll do a deeper dive into each of these aspects and give some real world examples to them. But you know, and maybe we'll talk more about this next week, but you know, these two, time and money, can oftentimes be a give and take. Sometimes if you spend a little money, it'll save you some time. And sometimes your biggest barrier is time, but you think it's money. And so, you know, I don't like to tell anybody how to spend their money, but it can be a sensitive, difficult thing to get past.
Well, but it's also, would throwing money at it help the situation?
Right.
Is it worth that investment to have someone else, if you don't have time to mow your own lawn? Would spending $20 a week to pay a kid neighbor, I don't know, we have neither a lawn nor a kid neighbor, so it doesn't really apply to us.
I just like the voice you use to say,
neighbor.
A kid neighbor. Gee, mister, can I mow your lawn?
But like reading Tiny Habits or not reading it was not a money issue. It was more of a time issue. So anyway, so those are the first two, time and money. What is the third?
So the third link in the ability chain is routine or schedule. Like, how can I look at my schedule differently? Like, what can I move around? And I just used the, you know, going to bed earlier as an example to fit in exercise. It is not easy to do. Like, sometimes there's a mental barrier to just like, well, I can't possibly go to bed before this time because, you know, this is my time. This is what, but it's also your time if you get up early to exercise. Or think about like, how can you work some things into your routine? Maybe there's a Zoom call that you're on at the same time every week, and maybe you can, you know, turn your camera off and you can do some exercises while that, you know, Zoom is happening, or, you know, just, you know, walk in place or do some, you know, lift some free weights or something like while that's happening. Like, think about your schedule and how you can work these things into your life, rearrange, and you know, change your priorities so that the things that you say that really matter to you really do.
Well, and for me, and this sort of habit design is really critical to putting new habits in place. It's not enough to say, you know, and declare, I'm going to do 20 minutes of yoga a day. I'm going to go for I'm going to get 10,000 steps. I'm going to, you know, prepare fresh food every night. And again, right now, as you're listening to this, it's, you know, mid to late March. If at the beginning of the month, you made this declaration that you were going to get all of these things done, but didn't actually say like, okay, I was going to say tough guy. I don't know why I called myself tough guy.
Listen, tough guy.
So when are you going to do yoga? Because a lot of times if we're like, oh, well, I'll do it later, we don't actually have it built into our schedule.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, I'll do it tomorrow. And things that don't have a designated time often get pushed to the back burner over convenient things. So building a routine that makes sense for you can really help a habit stick when you haven't been able to do it before, which is, again, is different than time. It's more about like integrating it. So for me, going back to the audiobooks, when I drove our teen to school, on the way home, I would listen to the audiobook.
Right.
Like, oh, that's 20 minutes a day. I'm in the car. I'm multitasking sort of. And it got it done really quickly, just like Chopin would have done if he drove his kid to school.
Yeah, Chopin, that guy got it done.
He sure did. Okay, so the next one is physical effort. And this can be an issue of like something being strenuous. Maybe you're asking physically too much of yourself. Going again back to the analogy of the marathon. I can't do it. Like, it's not, I would love to do it. You could play as much like inspirational montage as you'd like, but I'd get a mile and like fall over and need an ambulance. So it's not like, this is a physical effort issue. It's not a desire issue. So could you reduce the intensity?
Yeah.
The expectation of distance, the amount of weight, the frequency of doing it. I was just on a Zoom call the other day on Wolt about, and even just talking to my husband who's sitting right here, doing that episode on streaks of saying you're going to do something every single day for a month. If you work out really hard one day and can't walk the next day, you're not really going to be able to keep up a 30-day streak because you've pushed yourself too hard. So perhaps giving 50% effort will make it more sustainable for a month than going all out day one and then being exhausted the next day and needing 5 days to recover. That would happen to me so many times, of going all out, feeling like if I didn't give 100% of what the instructor said or my trainer said or whatever, that I didn't really want it. But all it did was it would leave me immobile for 5 days until my muscles stopped hurting. So again, could you reduce the physical effort? And part of that, like, I know reading a book isn't a super big physical effort, but it's hard. It's hard for me right now to sit still. I have so many other things going on that finding a dedicated time to sit was just too much considering everything I had going on. So again, driving and listening was a lot less physically taxing than trying to stay up and read all night. So.
Well, and a lot of these things are, I know there's 5 links in the ability chain, but a lot of these things are sort of 2 sides of the same coin, or 5 sides of a weird 5-sided coin.
Yeah.
Because, the next one is mental effort. And for some people, just as an example, for a lot of people, from what I gather, folding your laundry when it first comes out of the dryer is a huge effort. And now, is that physical effort or is that mental effort? Because there are some people who would say, well, folding laundry doesn't take that much physical effort. But for some people, that's like kryptonite. Like, you're putting kryptonite in front of them and they just can't do it. So, making this more about health and fitness, it's like, maybe the idea of running just overwhelms you. But the idea of walking, like, oh, that's cool. But maybe you have the idea that the only real exercise is running. Maybe you have the idea that, like, if I'm not at a gym on a machine, that's not really lifting weights, that kind of a thing. So how can you reframe this when it comes to the last part of the ability chain? How can you reduce that barrier? Maybe you want to eat more fruits and vegetables, but the idea of cleaning and chopping them drives you crazy. So maybe you can buy them when they're pre-prepared. Now, some people might be like, well, that's more money, but maybe that's worth it. So reframing all of this to get around your mental barriers is also a big part of this. And, you can have policies as well so that you reduce your decision fatigue. Like, I don't go out to dinner on the spur of the moment, like, could be a policy. I don't have like unplanned treats. I don't drink alcohol Monday through Thursday, or, I don't have more than one drink if I'm going to drink, or, we have a whole episode, Only Burgers in the Building, about making policies for yourself like this. Or, also mentally, you got to meet yourself where you are. Like, earlier, I joked that I thought I could just go run a marathon, but I know the reality of that is I haven't run in a very long time. I do a lot of walking. I walk up and down stairs a lot, but I'm not sure I could run for even 5 or 10 minutes right now, really. So I have to meet myself where I am. If I wanted to run, I can't just start with like, okay, I'm going to do a 2-mile run. I need to to work up to that and really start where I am, start with a smaller step and build up to that. So all of this sort of ties in together.
Yeah. And I think for me, that reframing, pulling things apart is kind of like the overarching thing for all of this is what would make this simpler? If there was no judgment, if there were no preconceived notions about how to get something done, what would break this down and be simpler for me? Because so many times we're tied up in other people's expectations. Well, I have no problem doing this every single day, or I meal prep every Sunday, or, well, working out is a breeze for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind folding laundry. I enjoy returning things to stores.
Oh,
and
my
Donald
God, I
would
hate
rather die.
If I buy something and it doesn't work out, or it's broken or whatever, I would rather just throw it in the trash and eat that money than go through the trouble. Now,
and I delight in returning things. I feel like I'm getting money.
Well, thank goodness I'm married to someone who delights in returning things, but also I have sort of pushed myself, but it's a struggle for me to actually want to return something. Like, I can't stand it. Luckily, a lot of these companies have sort of made returns a little bit easier than they used to be, but I hate it. So that's just a good example of, like, for Catherine, that's easy. For me, it's a struggle.
Right. And it's not just do it. Like, none of life is just do it. It's what is making this challenging? How could it be easier? So in Donald's condition, he married someone who enjoys returning something. So he's getting he's outsourcing.
Yeah, I did that returning. On purpose.
Yeah, it all comes.
That was the main thing that attracted me to, hey, do you like returning things? All right, let's get married.
We make a great fit.
Yeah.
But for all of us, and this goes for Donald and I too, it is so easy to feel defeated when seasons change in our life. Maybe something that used to be super easy for you to do 6 months ago suddenly feels like a slog. You feel overwhelmed and you're dreading it. This is a great opportunity to just ask yourself, what is making this hard right now? Is it a timing thing, money, routine, physical effort, or mental effort? Really address each of these elements and ask yourself if it has anything to do with it. You might find no, I've got the time and I've got, the physical effort is fine, but you know what? I don't have the routine for it. Aha. That's the aha moment. Okay. So the next question. So the first question is, what's making this challenging? And then the next is, what could make this easier? Think about it right now. And again, it might take some extra effort to really look for solutions and drill down on ways that you can make something easier. And part of that is being open to not knowing everything.
Yeah.
What am I missing in this? What could I Google? Should I join Wolt Place and have someone, have a group of other people going through the same things? Wolt Place, We Only Look Thin Place, our Facebook accountability group. Do I need a community of people going through the same thing who might have answers for me? People join, parenting groups and business networking groups and, fitness clinics and lots of different things, not because they know everything, but because they want to be around people going through the same things, coming up with different perspectives. There is something so amazing about that switch that flips when you reframe something and you kind of go why did I never look at it this way before?
Right.
And the more of those moments that we can have with our habits, the more we are open to the possibility of change and integrating the habits that we say that we want to do into our actual lives. And it feels so much better to be able to unpack all of these different aspects and troubleshoot our own habits than it does to say, I'll just do it after the spring, after the summer when the kids are back in school, after next Christmas. In 2026 is my year, everybody. Being able to take a little bit of time to untangle this for yourself is such an amazing investment in your personal empowerment and the habits that you want to do. It's not enough to have the motivation, the great song to go with it, the prompt to do it. We've got to have the ability accountability. And I know that if Donald and I can find ways to make this work for us, we know that you can make it work for you too.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for listening. Again, next week, we're going to do sort of a deeper dive with some practical applications of looking at the ability chain. I don't know if I should draw attention to it, but our neighbor has a bunch of people over and they've been making a lot of noise. I'm not sure how much the microphones have been picking it up, but if you've been hearing that, that's what's going on.
Can you just tell them we have lots of friends hanging out?
Yeah, lots of friends waiting
in the studio audience?
In the studio audience, exactly. That's what I should have said. So thank you so much for listening. We have a lot of other episodes of this show, 375 of them, in fact, and the most recent 300 are all available on all of the major podcast platforms. And you can go back and find every episode all the way back to the first one, either on YouTube or on our website at weonlylookthin.com.
Yep, and if you are at weonlylookthin.com, click a doodle-doo on that join.
Yes, click a doodle-doo.
Click a doodle-doo.
That's the thing grown-ups say.
Click on join our support group to find out more about Wolt Place. We Only Look Thin Place is our Facebook-based accountability group and weekly Zoom meeting coaching opportunity. We are not a weight loss plan. We are not going to tell you how many calories to eat. Come with the plan that you are doing, whether it is intermittent fasting, calorie tracking, Weight Watchers, whatever it is. Come on into Wolt Place and be there for the accountability check-ins, again, the weekly and sometimes more than weekly Zoom meetings that I host where we do deep dives on being proactive in your health journey venture. There's so many ways to be connected, so find the one that is right for you. Again, if Facebook isn't your jam, those Zoom meetings are invaluable. So please check us out. We have 2 subscription options, a monthly subscription with a 3-day complimentary trial and a 3-month subscription with a 7-day complimentary trial to see if Wolt Place is right for you.
Yeah, so please check it out. And you can also check us out on social media. We are on Facebook and Instagram at We Only Look Thin. Or if you'd rather reach out to us via email, you can do that as well. If you have some episode suggestions, if you have some information for us on ways that you have used the ability chain that we haven't talked about, if you'd like to give us a compliment, if you have some questions, you can do all of those things at weonlylookthin@gmail.com.
Yep. And if you have a couple of extra minutes, please head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a rating and a review. We have over 710 Apple Star reviews now, which we are so appreciative of. It really helps keep us going after all of these years of putting out content. It means so much to us. The ratings and reviews are everything. And it also helps boost our ratings in Apple and helps other people find our podcast when they are looking for helpful, good time Actually, I shouldn't say good time. That's probably not what you look for.
If you search helpful good time podcast, I'm
maybe that's not it.
Not sure we come up.
Don't do that. But helpful weight loss, nutrition, mindset podcast. So please take that extra time and do that for us. That would be super helpful.
Yes, keep those Apple stars coming. Another thing you could do that would really help us out is just to tell somebody about the show, whether you're in a conversation and it comes up, or if you know somebody who might get something out of it and you reach out to them and let them know about us. Or if you are in an online group, a Facebook group, a subreddit, a Discord server that has to do with weight loss, health, and fitness, and you give us a shout out, it really does help the show grow.
Yep.
So if you've spent the last half an hour trying to Google a comprehensive list of all of the songs that are about chains, please instead remember that Catherine and I are an inspiration.
See, there's Alice in Chains. No, that's a band. Never mind.
The information that you hear on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The hosts are not medical professionals. You should always consult with your doctor, nurse, or other certified health professional before beginning any diet or fitness program.